Okay, so this video is going to be a lot less comedic or failed attempts at comedy. This video is more serious because this is a very important topic to me. Just a few days ago, we learned that there's going to be a new Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi game. Now, I don't know if they're outright going to call it Budokai Tenkaichi 4. It'd be cool if they do that, but they might say like Budokai Tenkaichi Ultimate or something like that, like a reboot of the series. But the important part about Budokai Tenkaichi, it's sort of, even after the series ended, it's sort of become the DNA of every Dragon Ball game following afterwards. You'd get games like Burst Limit and FighterZ, but for Raging Blast, for Xenoverse, they're basically also just Tenkaichi, except slightly different. And they're fun games, but I'm very excited for Tenkaichi. Because it's not just a fighting game. This is a Dragon Ball simulator, and that's the important part that Namco Bandai or Bandai Namco or whatever they're calling themselves these days, they need to understand that this isn't Xenoverse. This isn't creating your own character and interacting with Dragon Ball characters, which is fun. I'm very tempted to say I want character creator in this, but I think that should be a Xenoverse thing. This Budokai Tenkaichi is a Dragon Ball simulator. And while Tenkaichi 3 is absolutely amazing, there are things I want. I want an outright improvement. I don't just want a new game. This needs to build upon Tenkaichi 3, but better. And that kind of leads me to my first major demand. These aren't requests, by the way. These are demands. And the very first demand is that this cast, that the game, it has to have a giant cast. You cannot pussy out of this. You have to have over 100 characters. That is the point of Tenkaichi. That you can play as literally anyone and everyone. But Tenkaichi 3 was missing some people. It has basically everyone from Dragon Ball Z. And you would not surprise me if the grand majority of the new characters in this game come from Super. And I understand that. Super was, and still sort of is, the big deal for Dragon Ball right now. But what I want, because I don't just want this to be the Z and Super game, like FighterZ is, or like every property Dragon Ball is, where it's just Z and Super. I want all of Dragon Ball. I want all of Dragon Ball GT. Basically, any character that had a fight in Dragon Ball needs to be a playable character in this game. All the way from the original Hunt for the Dragon Balls arc to the Red Ribbon Army, which I include here. We did have some characters from OG Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT in the last Budokai Tenkaichi. And they even show up in Xenoverse, but I need more. It can't just be Omega Shenron and Gogeta. It can't be Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. It can't just be Baby Vegeta. That's cutting ahead. It has to be everyone. I want all the Shadow Dragons. And going back to Dragon Ball, I want all the fighters from the Red Ribbon Army. Not just Tao Pai Pai, who's awesome. Not just General Blue. Not just Android 8. We also need Murasaki. We need... I don't even remember what this character's name is, but that's the beauty of Dragon Ball. It can't even... About Tenkaichi, it's not... You don't just get the big name characters. You can get random nobodies like this guy or General Metallic. Even as a joke, you could throw in Launch. I mean, we play Mr. Satan. Hercule is basically a playable character in every Dragon Ball game. So I can't say that they can't come up with a moveset for Launch. Just have fun with it. That's the point of this game series. That it's fun. next up, more specific character requests. I know that in the last game, in the last Tenkaichi, we had original Dragon Ball era Goku, which makes sense. We had Demon King Piccolo. We had Dragon Ball era Chi-Chi, but we need Dragon Ball era Krillin, Yamcha, and especially Tien. Tien gets done so dirty in these games. He gets done dirty in general, but really, he has so many moves specifically shown off during the Dragon Ball era as opposed to the Z and Super era that he really should have had another playable version of him. There's like 8 Gokus in in Tenkaichi. I mean, there are 8 Gokus in every Dragon Ball game, but the point still stands. I want basically every era of these characters accounted for. And the beauty of Tenkaichi, again, not just the big name characters. I don't even know who this guy is. But did you know in Tenkaichi 3 there was just a character called Frieza Soldier? That guy didn't even have a name, but he was his own original character, and he has his own original ultimate move. So you can't tell me you can't put this guy in a game either if they just throw in generic mooks. Throw in more generic mooks. If anyone fought in Dragon Ball, I want them playable. I also, just for fun of it, just to say we can, put Farmer with Shotgun in the game. Again, this guy doesn't have a name, but he's Farmer with Shotgun, and that's worth it. Also, put in the boy, Tao Pai Pai. He is the coolest Dragon Ball era character there is, and I'm very disappointed he wasn't in FighterZ. But yeah, just more specific character requests. But again, I want to make this clear. This is not the competitive fighting game like FighterZ is. This is a Dragon Ball simulator. And a very important thing I want this game to do, if it can be done in the show, I should be able to do it in the game. Now, this is, for stuff like Tien, it was more so just moves he had in Dragon Ball that didn't show up in Z that I would like to see again, like the not Shadow Clone Jutsu he did, and the ability to grow extra arms that is absolutely insane. But there is something that Raging Blast did that I don't think any other game did. It was kind of upsetting to see not show up in games like Xenoverse, or even that Battle of Z game. Like games that were really priding themselves on the fact that they had multiplayer and you could fight up to like 3 characters at a time. There are no tag team moves in those games. I remember Raging Blast, and even Burst Limit had like partner interactions, and there were tag team moves in those games. Raging Blast had a move where if you did the special beam cannon and you had Goku on your team, Goku would grab them from behind like he did in the show. More of a burst limit thing, but like you would have the ability to have your partner sacrifice themselves to protect you from an ultimate move. And I think that is a mechanic that would be very fun to do in tag team modes specifically. But yeah, and just like specific like funny counters, because Dragon Ball is a comedy at heart. Toriyama is more of a comedic writer at heart. I'd like more specific counter moves or blocks, like if Yamcha goes for a flying kick move, but the person blocks just in the nick of time, just have them hit Yamcha in the balls, just to humiliate this poor man even more. Just have fun with it, and that's the important part of this game. It's fun. Now, this one doesn't really have any visual aids with me, but this is kind of a thing that's bothered me. Sometimes the music in Dragon Ball games are good. I know that, like, we're kind of, like, particularly the original Budokai era games are kind of infamous for being plagiaristic, but those were some great tracks. Whoever was in charge of that OST copied very good music. And to be fair, the original Tenkaichi games had good music too, but it's felt like ever since Tenkaichi ended, there was a long stretch of time where Dragon Ball music and video games were very just generic rock songs. I can't recite a single thing from any of the Xenoverse games. Maybe the overworld theme, but Fighters had a good soundtrack. But that's, you can count on Japanese fighting games for having really awesome soundtracks. But I want better musical variety, and specifically, I want not just original soundtracks. I'd love to finally have a Dragon Ball game that used the soundtrack from the show. Now, you will occasionally, not just occasionally, but most of the time, you will get Chala, Head Chala in video games, but I want more. And just all of the Japanese soundtrack, hell, even get the Bruce Faulkner soundtrack. I know that divide in the fandom of Japanese and English scores is a thing, but I don't care. I love both of those soundtracks, and I think I would love to hear them again in a video game, especially in a video game. So, yeah, I'd like to hear, like the Tenkaichi Budokai, not to confuse it with the actual game, but the actual tournament from the show has its own awesome soundtrack. The Red Ribbon Army has a fantastic soundtrack. I'd love to hear these games get those scores. Now, here's something that has been bothering me for a good while. I list this as no shiny bullshit. Ever since Tenkaichi ended, with the exception of Burst Limit and FighterZ and maybe Kakarot, I need to play more of Kakarot because I started it and I haven't played more of it, but I will get back onto it. But ever since those games, ever since Tenkaichi ended, we went to this weird art direction where everyone looks super shiny and plasticky and not real. Even, like, sure, it makes sense for Super Saiyans because they're covered in a golden aura, but even then, these look awful. I hate the shiny look of it. Everyone looks like plastic. It looks dull, and it doesn't really capture the feel of the show. I love Raging Blast 1 specifically. Raging Blast 2 was kind of the downfall of it, but Fighters is probably the best looking Dragon Ball game we have had ever. I feel like if you are adapting and specifically trying to capture the very essence of an anime for a video game, cel shaded is an absolute must. I want them to look like the show, and I don't want this, like, this isn't even a Super Saiyan form, but he's just shiny. I mean, granted, like, his clothes were kind of shiny in the show, but, like, his skin, even, like, Goku's, like, pants, it's just, his hair, they're just shiny for no reason, and I think it's a very ugly art direction. So, yeah, I want a more shell-shaded art style. Granted, the trailer sort of showed that, but, again, that was like a 3-second trailer. We didn't really see any gameplay, and, yeah, I want the game to look more like this. Another thing that's been kind of bothering me, and it'll bother me a lot for FighterZ that we didn't get alternate costumes. I want better alternate costumes for Tenkaichi. Now, the original Tenkaichi wasn't really a slouch. Specifically for characters like Goku and Vegeta, you would get a wide variety of designs for them. They basically got every outfit they ever fought in the show. You'd even got the Saiyan training outfit Goku had in the Cell Saga. But then you get characters like Ultimate Gohan, and I don't have a picture of him, but Goten as well, who had, normally they would have reddish orange gis, but their alternate costumes would just be yellow orange gis. And I think that's very, very lame. The original Budokai games actually did a very good job. I know that, like, we did see, like, a 1-second hypothetical of Captain Ginyu and wearing Goku's clothes, but even then we had that as an alternate costume in the Budokai games. Even this like regular non Goku gi that Goten wears is a selectable option. The original Budokai games had, I mean, outside of like Frieza, Cell, and Boo, who didn't really have options for alternate costumes, they had, every character had something they could change. Even if it isn't spectacular, I like alternate costumes. I think alternate costumes are absolutely fun. And this is kind of can be like outside of other specific things. This is where you can have a bit more liberty with just having fun. Just have fun. Just like reference everything. If it's like this 1 second thing can be, if this 1 second thing can become an alternate costume for Captain Ginyu, then just reference as many like appearances as the characters had. Hell, you know, it'd be great, and I know you guys would agree with me. Pink shirt Vegeta. You want to play as that. I know you guys. So, yeah. And one thing that, even starting back from the original Budokai games, but it made its way to the very end of Tenkaichi 3, is just fun side modes. We had tournament modes, of course. We had team battles. There were other modes. I kind of have a hard time forgetting them, but there was just fun distractions. They're like, everyone praises Budokai 3's like open world like story mode, but I have a very soft spot for the Dragon World board from Budokai 2, mainly because I played more of Budokai 2. But just like have modes that like are fun, can just just allow us to have breaks from generic, not generic, but just, you know, I mean, I'm kind of stumbling over my own words, but like you could bring like a board game back, and that would allow you to buy like grind for capsules that would help customize like stats and stuff for characters. You can have like a destruction mode where you destroy more of the arena than your opponent can. You could just come up with some fun stuff. And speaking of some fun stuff, what if? Now, Dragon Ball games have usually been very good with what-ifs. Tenkaichi especially has been very good with what-ifs. The entire Xenoverse games are centered around what-ifs about characters going back and like screwing up with the natural timeline of Dragon Ball and you having to change it back. But Tenkaichi and the original Budokai had very good what-ifs. There were very good what-if story modes, especially in Budokai 2 and Budokai 3, but stuff I specifically want to see, stuff I kind of want to bring back, are what-if fusions. We had, again, a 1 second joke of Goku and Hercule fusing got to be his own unique character. We had the hypothetical, and even also you can do like failed fusions. That'd be fun. We didn't get failed fusions in the Tenkaichi games. That would be a lot of fun to just change that up. But yeah, this is also like a fusion of Tien and Yamcha. To bring that back. Another thing to bring back were the Super Buu absorptions from Tenkaichi 2. I mean, not Tenkaichi 2, Budokai 2. Another reason Budokai 2 is great and people overlook it too much. And even the original Budokai had this what if of Cell accidentally absorbing Krillin. It's just, this is where you can have fun. I know I said I want a Dragon Ball simulator, and that is absolutely the truth. But to absolutely show up Xenoverse and like how much that series makes such a big deal about characters changing the natural history of the Dragon Ball universe, actually show real horrific changes that would happen to the Dragon Ball world. Allow me to actually play as Krillin Cell outside of that one what if mode. That would be fun. But yeah, that's basically all I had in mind. And Bandai Namco, these are not requests. One final time. These are demands. And if you do not do this, I want you to take your time with it. I don't want these workers to have to deal with crunch because, I mean, I've already been let down by games that suffered crunch, like MK11. But this game needs to be massive. There needs to be over 100 characters in this game. There needs to be so much content in this game. And the very important thing is if you do not do that, you failed me, you failed the fans, and you failed the very idea of Budokai Tenkaichi. Anyways, I'm very tired. Bye.